the name of the round table today, the title, is SMEs, what are the real needs? And we talked a lot about regulation, about banks all the time, and we didn't speak too much about SMEs. That's what, from my experience in the field and what's really needed for SMEs, I think there are some learning points in that as well. Because if you're a real entrepreneur, you're positive, you're creative, and you seek opportunities. A lot of the time, the real good entrepreneurs can find access to finance. There is a lot of money available, but you have to find it. And we have to help a group which sometimes has a great idea, but has no literacy or no financial education to actually run their company, or actually to know what kind of finance they're looking for. We as a bank help to develop that in a lot of ways. We got our own stimulation loan, which is a junior debt, which is available for companies. But we also support crowdfunding, not as an alternative for banking finance. It's an additional mean for companies to experience a connection with the ones funding their business, and it can also be a good instrument for placing high-risk money from private investors by using the social due diligence done by the crowd. Because of the small tickets, the cost should otherwise be really high. So hopefully we're going to have the questions about the SMEs and what we can do for them and how we can help them. And of course, yeah, within the bank, we have to change as well. We have to be able to help those clients, but not in getting necessary finance. It's to help them to be a successful entrepreneur and to have the business be successful. And if the business is successful, then we as a bank are successful as well, and we can do what we're here for. Thank you.
You point to a very interesting element, which I wondered myself also listening to the interventions this morning. Where are the SMEs? As a former president of the Chamber of Commerce of The Hague, I knew a lot of people who were very successful entrepreneurs and could get the money reasonably easy. Also when they went to the banks. The big problem was with those entrepreneurs who were not able to make a simple business plan or to follow the right procedures. And it is amazing to see with how little effort basic knowledge can be carried to the potential entrepreneurs, which helps them already quite a bit. So I'm very glad that you point to that element. Now, this was I must say personally, a fascinating panel, and it certainly will give rise to remarks, comments, or questions. And you are perfectly free to put any question on under one condition, that it is related to the subject of our round table, and that is, what are the real needs? And please give your name and yeah, calm. He is very eager, this man. He has had a good lunch. I see it. Yeah, and give your name and mention also the name of the persons you want to address. Now, okay, we start with Mr. Humer, please. U hebt me.
Thank you very much. I have to come back to this, let's say, a little bit criticism that SMEs was missing out on the discussion in the morning, because but of course you are right. Yeah, I said also 70% of the companies don't even need a loan, and they are able to finance themselves. And out of the 30% which asked for loan the last year, more than 85 got a loan. This is not really the problem, but this doesn't mean that we can deny that the times become more difficult. Not only because of the crisis, but also because of the fact that more and more banks in Europe, and Rabobank is one of them, have a more responsible commercial thinking. And they are not that more willing and able to transfer deposit money or money they get from the capital market into risk financing for SMEs. And the really challenge that what we have is not in reality the classic loan for classical business. The real problem we have is who finance in Europe riskier projects like innovation, etc., etc. And if there is no venture capital available, if SMEs have no access to capital markets, and the banks are not taking the risk, what's left? Then we have to speak about public support. And the taxpayers have to take the risk at the moment. And what I said in the morning is, this cannot be our future, that the taxpayers taking out the risk of the business sector. That's all.
May I turn this declaration ex cathedra into a question to whoever want to give an answer, and that is, if it is so that 70% of the companies don't need the money from outside, and of the 30% that left, 85% get the loans, so there's only a small part that is not getting the loan. How do you look at it? And secondly, what are you adding? Because people said we have lots of services and we do it in order to make these companies more resilient and more viable. Mr. Jutte, yes, please.
Okay. The first part of the question is the banks don't take enough risk. What we did, what all Basel regulation measures are, is to take the risk out of the banks. So you can't expect them to, on the other hand, accept more risk. But as a cooperative bank, we think we have a role in society. So we do create local funds which accept a higher risk. And our main problem is that we have the money, but we can't find the entrepreneurs which present a good a plan to invest in. So we have to work on that, and that's what I said. Well, by helping the SMEs to present their plans and to have the understanding that there's a difference between junior debt and senior debt, which the larger companies have, but the smaller companies don't. And by helping them, they will get access. And then at some point, if the economy grows, yeah, we run out of money, and that's not a problem. But now that's not the problem. We have to get them to get the real money.
Oui. Moi, je suis chef.
Yes, I'm a business director. So what I'm interested in is protecting these business leaders or future business leaders. Of course, we are only working with very small SMEs, because what we're doing there is going to the EIF, because we don't want to have to seize the houses of future business leaders if something goes wrong. So we're a social fund because often there are different reasons behind a situation. Sometimes there are personal situations, and what we look at is a way of finding a response so that they are not personally taking on this guarantee for the director of businesses. So that's the contribution that we can make as leaders of very small SMEs. And Mr. Rebelal, you particularly, when people don't have anything to eat, as a bakery and patisserie expert, you're able to feed them as well. Yes, there's no problems there. Okay, great.
From the floor. Is everything clear?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Riccardo Viaggi. I am the Secretary General of the European Builders Confederation. EBC represents construction craftsmen and SMEs. So we are a member of UAPME, and I would like to take the occasion to state that I cannot entirely join the remarks of Gerard in saying that everything concerning access to finance goes fairly well. In the construction sector, everything in access to finance goes fairly bad, if not very, very poorly. I must say that we don't have as precise figures. We don't do surveys as UAPME does, but certainly access to finance is always in our remarks, in our meetings, mentioned as the problem that that craftsmen and SMEs face in their everyday business. We're talking about loans of 25,000 euros who are refused regularly. So these are the SME needs, to come back to the question of the panel of today. And I would like to stress the importance of the work that SOCAMA and other mutual guarantee funds do. The most important problem is the request of collaterals that the normal banking system asks in asking for the house and the goods and the assets of a family in case of a craft business, which is the regular business in construction sector. So to come back to two SME needs, I would like to give you these two needs as a comment more than indeed a question.
Very clear, you say, and that is exactly what we hear in this committee day by day. Access to finance is absolutely fundamental for business and in particular for the SMEs. But what's your experience in this? It's on.
Well, I completely agree with the last speech of the secretary, because in building, but generally also other sectors in Italy, small business have that kind of problems. And of course, it is a sum of the crisis and also of other structural problems of our financial sector. And another thing I want to say that I agree with the other colleagues when they underline the importance of a kind of consultancy to our enterprises, and that is something in which we invest a lot, because our associations that are 1,300 around Italy they have a long-term relationship with our entrepreneurs, and also they are very linked with some banks, local banks, but also they can have this important role of lightening the tensions in this period. And they also make a kind of consultancy business plan that is very useful for very small entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yeah. It's in line with what other participants in the panel said. Madame.
Thank you very much. My name is Ivona Mertin. I'm representing Eurochambre, Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry. I would like to refer to 2 points. We mentioned increased requirement of collateral. In many countries currently there are initiatives to create national guarantee funds or that sort of institutions. Lately in France, last year in Ireland. I just wanted to ask the panelists, how would you feel about certain projects on European level what already has been partially mentioned by my colleague from Austrian Chamber. This is one thing. And another thing, what do you think about crowdfunding? To what extent the SMEs are aware of the potential that is coming from this sector? I know that the European Commission is looking at the issue, and I know also that in some countries there are already different stakeholders working on the matter, on the legislation, to make sure that it works well there. So I wonder, we don't have any representative from the Commission on the panel, I think, but I wonder, what do you think about it? Thank you.
Well, thank you. To start with the last question, crowdfunding is something we look at in the Netherlands, and we do some pilots, and it really seems to work. The problem is the legislation, because you just need an internet site and you're a crowdfunding platform. You offer no protection at all, but we shouldn't have too much regulation, because it will kill the initiative. We use it in two ways, because we're trying to educate the entrepreneurs in what they can use it for, the different platforms that you can use for different ways. You can attract risk capital, but you also, and that's what we're really looking at as a cooperative bank, you can build up a relationship with your clients, because they invest in your company and they come back. And we're, as a bank, besides the stimulation of the local economy, we're also very interested in how we can use the social due diligence in our own credit decision. Because, for instance, in bars, there are a lot of bars going bankrupt, but if a bar first attracts a lot of money from clients, they're the ones who have invested in it. They will be the one to be drinking in that bar. So then I can put my trust in it as well. Yeah. Well, they invested in a company. If you invest in a company, if you invest in a bakery, you go shop your bread there. So that's an interesting point. And one of the problems is, what we should do is to like to get it known more, because a lot of the entrepreneurs don't know what to do with it, how to cope with it, and what they have to do. And if they can't go to the crowdfunding platform as they do at the bank a lot of the time, to say, well, I want money. No, you have to give a good pitch why you need the money, and they need some help with that. And now I forgot the first question. Oh, the guarantee funds. Well, we have in the Netherlands for over 100 years a real good guarantee scheme with government guarantee. It works up to 1 million. As a Rabobank, we use it. We're more than 50% user of the guarantee scheme. It's not a good solution. It's not. How do you say? It's not the solution, because you still need to repay the loan. If you have a guarantee or not, but you have to repay the loan. So, but it's a help. It's a real good help. And you're asking, well, should there be a European scheme? Today, on several occasions, there was mentioned there are a lot of differences between the countries and the system and how they work. So I would be in favor of the national schemes, but with European support sometimes.
Anybody? Yeah, please.
Oui, je voudrais répondre.
Yes, I'd just like to reply as regards the guarantee funds. As far as I'm aware, and the ones that I'm aware of in our system, it's in no way supported by the French state. It's the heads of businesses, the presidents of professional associations, professional organizations, and they represent the liberal professions and so on, who are our administrators. And it's those people who have created those mutual associations, of course, to start off with the help of the people's banks. and they were able to set up that type of guarantee scheme. It's only for the very small businesses, because it's only those kinds of businesses that would have done that without the help of a bank. But we don't have any state support. It's only those banks that have helped us. I know there is a national system in France and everything. However, that doesn't want to work with us. They do not want to cooperate with us. And why? Well, I'll tell you why. That's because these systems, well, they only reimburse the bank as a last resort when all of the different options have been exhausted. We only pay when it happens and straight away. And why? Well, if we're able to arrange things so we avoid the social fund, then that's all that we're interested in. We're business directors. Our administrators are not bankers. They're only the business directors. We have bankers' councils. We're not financial experts. We are business people from very small companies, so we need their help, their advice, and they do help us to manage the whole of our guarantee societies, but we aren't bankers. I just wanted to give a Canadian perspective. In fact, in Canada, of course, we have a certain number of things that you do here as well, at national level, at Canadian level, but also at provincial and municipal level. For instance, in different organizations, for instance, Development for Exports in Canada, which are governmental organizations, they want to set up some insurance schemes, some guarantee schemes for exports, some financing instruments, and I think they also want to have some guarantees in place. And if we look at provincial level, there's also guarantees for loans, direct guarantees, especially for certain sectors such as IT and technology, and there are certain tax credits which are able to be reimbursed. And also at municipal level, so that we can foster the economic creation and economic growth in some regions, and to help businesses to become more international, because of course Quebec is a very limited market for a lot of those companies. Thank you. But don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against the state system, but I would in fact want to work with them. That's what I would like. In fact, in Canada, it's this synergy that is very present if we look at financial cooperation between these governmental groups. Perhaps that's the difference that we have. I would just, as regards to what Lucia has said, I'd like to add something to talk about the French experience. And if you look at some loan guarantee funds, they're state measures, but they have been so far reserved to those very large companies to help large contracts, for instance, with Air France and the aviation industry. And I heard a presentation from our tax authorities or our financial authorities, and they were talking about the loans that they give out each year. And this is the first time that they have shown their desire to also have this in place for SMEs. And it's something that's very sensitive, and I think this difference here is that it's going to be really reserved for SMEs. So I think there's a greater awareness now, and there is the desire to also help SMEs. Yes, we think it's progress. It's a step forward, isn't it? And it's very interesting. Any more questions at all? Yes. Mr. Ibedo.
Enfin, c'est une question.
This is a question To Madame Monsa, perhaps I'll give her the floor. I was just wondering, because of the idea behind this round table is to talk about needs, the needs of SMEs. So overall requirements, we've talked a lot about the risk coverage needs, and we've also talked about internationalization. If we look at this, cooperative banks have had to tackle specific difficulties. It's the fact we don't have networks abroad because, by definition, we are local banks. Therefore, we have tried to work as a network together with our partners, especially within the CIBP. And the Desjardins group is a partner. We've been trying to implement an approach as part of a network so that we're able to utilize the expertise in our partners and all the different banks in our partner countries, because of course we are not able to know what's going on in the smaller banks in neighbouring countries. Therefore, we've set up these networks. We've called it the International Desk Network, for instance, and Madame Mosa and Madame Maldino as well. They'll be aware of these networks because they take part in our work, and I think it'd be interesting to hear them talk about the approach within the CIBP to try to provide specific responses to the SMEs who are our clients.
Mais je l'avais évoqué effectivement.
Well, yes, I talked about that just now when I talked about the International Desk Network. It's true, we don't all have our own networks, or very little, very few of us do have that at national level. Of course, if we can be more effective, if we do, and that's based on local partners as well who know the country very well, the legislation and practices in the country in question. And what I touched on just now was the idea that we need to have something that's very operational between us. We really need to reflect, first of all, on what the main need is. First of all, it's opening an account, but it's not just that. Once you've done that, you've also got all the associated services. And sometimes they differ from one country to another. Legislation varies as well, as do procedures. Therefore, we can work based on the experience of others, and we've done that to help account opening for funding as well. As I mentioned before, that facilitates funding because if you, for instance, had a French client who wanted to open an account in Germany, if they approached a German bank, they would go there and they would say, yes, I'm an SME. What can you do for me? How can you help me? And they could go and do that, but it could be quite complex. Whereas we would advise our client, we would help them, we would fill in the documents, we would have a recommendation letter and a certain type of form, and we would do that for our client. They would tell them what they need to do, and we would